Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Bitcoin seen a beautiful pump showing signs of recovery today, but will the move last? I want to take a look at Bitcoin on several different time frames today to go over a few levels that are currently on my radar, how I'm planning to trade this, and so on. So with that, let's hop right into the 4-hour chart here, you guys, to see what the heck is going on. First things first, you guys know that I have been extremely bearish on this downtrend, and honestly, that trend has not broken yet. So I'm still looking at favoring the bearish setups for now. Although I did take a long earlier today and did catch the majority of that pump. But overall, I am still looking at this trend as a downtrend. Now, my gut feelings and what the charts are telling me are two very different things. So that's something that's important to mention as well. For example, right now, currently, myself, I feel like it's looking like the bulls are strong. We haven't seen this much strength in quite some time. I'm going to go over a few reasons why I think that. But you guys, to me, I would not be too surprised to see this downtrend break just because we are seeing so much strength and we are seeing retail shorting quite heavily and that sort of thing. But again, the charts are what they are. You know, I'm still looking at trading the charts for what they are rather than what I hope is there. So we're going to have to see what happens. But basically, as it stands, even with this nice little pump today, it is fantastic to see, you guys. However, understand that nothing, literally not a thing for me has changed on the 4-hour structure other than the fact that it looks like the bulls are stronger this time. But as it stands right now, the fact that we had this low, this lower low, this lower high, those of you guys who have been in my live streams for the last couple of weeks know that I've been watching this structure for quite some time now. Basically, this range is still here. And the fact that we never broke below the range, but we also haven't yet broke above the range has not broken, and therefore it's still intact at this point. One thing that I'm considering is basically pulling a new fib, something from here where we've had our most recent rejection, where to look for our new resistance, basically. But just like that structure that I just outlined, you know, the fact that we never set a lower low to this level down here means that this for me is not actually a confirmed lower high. Yeah, we're just kind of assuming that, hey, it's still a resistance point and it matches up perfectly with our previous lower high on the trend there. But just understand that the fact that this low never actually took out this low here. I mean, if it did, I would be very bearish right now as we're retesting resistance. But the fact that we did get this recovery early and never set a lower low, I do feel a little bit different about this resistance on this test because we already tested resistance, right? Like I was saying, low, lower high. We already got our retest of resistance on the downtrend. So as always, resistance is resistance until it's broken. However, just understand that this resistance has already been tested once. We already had the STUBER fib play out once. We hit the first target, got so close to my second target, but front run it a little bit. It is what it is. But yeah, we're just going to have to see what happens, basically. I mean, I would love to see us get a higher high in that case, start longing some pullbacks, depending how it's going to form, but basically looking at however the higher highs form on the trend, then basically looking for confirmed higher lows as we go. But we're going to have to see. I don't want to get too bullish yet. Like I said, I feel and it looks like we're going to break this resistance. But again, resistance is resistance until it's broken. And I'm a very firm believer in trading the charts for what is actually currently there rather than what I hope happens or what I think is going to happen or what it looks like is going to happen. So for those of you guys who do appreciate that and love looking at the charts just for what they are, looking at market structure for what it is rather than the trying to overanalyze the fundamentals and announcements and all that sort of stuff in the market, the whole global economy. If you just like looking at charts and trading them for what they are, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And like I mentioned, you guys, I actually did catch the majority of this push to the upside today. Never caught this stuff to the upside because for me, we were still in a downtrend basically. And I had outlined in the Telegram that basically the MDX Trendmaster, we had a significantly lower sell signal sitting at around 87,000 US dollars. I had mentioned that if we break that level, it's quite likely that we end up going for a nice push to the upside. And that's exactly what happened. We even got our higher buy signal, right? Even this next sell signal, notice that it was a slightly higher sell signal. And then we got our higher buy signal to go with that. So absolutely love to see this indicator pointing out an obvious trend like that. So nice to see. And like I said, I had pointed this out in my Telegram this morning. Actually, one of my last short scalps last night finally got stopped out. But then I had mentioned that, hey, since we broke that level, that was invalidated. I think it's quite likely that we end up pushing to the upside. And you can see we started getting a nice push to the upside. And I had also mentioned here that, you know, when we get a straight flush to the downside, when we break that, the range and the structure to the upside, we likely get the exact opposite move, just like we did here, right? The fact that we basically dropped straight to the downside, we have no structure, right? There was no structure consolidation levels that formed on this downtrend here. So as soon as we ended up invalidating that 87K resistance, that's where it was a green light to basically do the exact opposite. And like I said, I had basically pointed this out, just warning that a climb was very possible today in the Telegram channel. So if that is the kind of thing that interests you, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen, just getting more examples of some of my trade setup ideas, my overall thoughts on the market, how I'm pulling Fibonacci's, how I'm looking at market structure, all that sort of good stuff, you guys. If that is something that interests you, just trading the charts for what they are, do yourselves a favor. Like I said, scan that QR code. As well, my partners at BloFin are currently giving my followers this promo, basically going on for about a week until December 7th. So yeah, just some nice loss rebates, some cash back on deposits and that sort of thing. So yeah, if that is something that interests you, again, you know what to do. But yeah, guys, what to expect moving forward. Like I said, I still have to, at this point, it makes more sense for me to be a seller at resistance than a buyer at resistance. Like I had mentioned, I did end up taking a bit of a long on this. I was in from about 86.6K, and then I ended up taking another one at about 87.4K, but I ended up closing all of my shorts at around 92,000. I believe that should even be on here. How I said, I actually may regret this, but I'm TPing my long here at 92K. The trade hit a much higher profit than I was expecting, since I was just entering as more of a scalp than anything. And being that we hit my bigger resistance level again, I just wanted to lock in those profits. And I started, even though my swing short, the rest of the remaining 3/4 of it was stopped at break even, I did start laddering into a new one. Now I'm starting this one a little bit smaller just because, again, the fact that we've already tested resistance once, I think it's quite possible that we do end up pushing through this time. But more so, since it was already retested, I wouldn't be surprised to see us actually test into a swing fail territory, some sort of a liquidity grab fake out above our lower highs. So I do have a couple more orders set inside my red box here to add to my short position and pull my average entry up a little bit. And if it gets stopped out from there, so be it. If we start staircasing to the upside, like I said, from there, I can start longing the pullbacks. Basically, as long as we're setting higher highs, then I can start pulling fibs, looking for those bullish pullbacks and looking for the long side from there. If we just end up breaking through this and then coming straight back down, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're bearish anymore, but possibly just getting some sort of a bullish retest from our lows to wherever our new high is, right? If we end up invalidating the lower high on the trend, basically. So a couple different ways that this could go at this point. But like I said, I've been playing this downtrend aggressively for about 7 weeks now. If I end up losing one of my swing positions here eventually because the trend is breaking, so be it. You know, that's eventually the trend is going to break. That's just a part of trading. If that trade ends up getting stopped out and I take a loss there, I don't really care because I have been making crazy profits on the downside while a lot of people were trying to catch the knife the entire way down. I'm more so waiting for that confirmation that the trend is actually breaking before I switch up my method of trading, basically. The weekly chart, this is actually looking significantly better than yesterday. Also with this pump, I mean, this candle was red yesterday when I was streaming as we were dropping into my purple box here. But I mean, we are still holding support right now. As I was mentioning, it's possible we just chop around sideways in a big range for, a couple of months if we're going to do anything similar to what we did in our previous market cycle. And obviously we don't have to repeat it perfectly, but so far the market structure in every aspect looks so similar here. The fact that we lost our horizontal levels, we lost our diagonal levels, we came down and tested an 886 absolutely perfectly. If I bring up the RSI was sitting at about 37 at this 886 touch. And this 886 touch, we got down to about 36. So even the RSI is acting very similar. These are just two very, very similar chart setups playing out so far. The thing is, fractal patterns do break. It does not have to be the same thing. Just as it stands right now, I don't think that bulls are necessarily in the clear. I don't think all hope is lost for the bulls either, as I've been saying for the last several weeks. However, there's a lot of red flags on the macro timeframes on Bitcoin that I just can't simply ignore at this point. Taking a look at the MDX long short ratio indicator. So as I was saying, basically, when we see retail shorts stepping into the market, that's where we get our rocket fuel, basically. Just like when longs step in, that's where we have fuel for the fire, right? So basically, the market is going to do the opposite of what retail traders are going to do. And, when we ended up forming this bottom here, we did start to see retail shorts start to climb. So that's been fuel to push us to the upside. If retail starts longing again as we trade into resistance here, then we're likely going to get shut down. I mean, technically, the retail long indicator is sitting very close to support right now while we're trading at the same resistance level. So we're going to have to watch that. But I mean, we're going to have to see. Basically, like I said, shorts start climbing. I think the price keeps climbing. Retail longs start climbing. That's where the price is going to start dumping again. So we'll have to see what happens there. Aster, you guys, I want to hop into altcoins for a little bit and just look at a few charts. I have been pointing out this Aster setup on the 4 hour for, a week or two now. I think I've been talking about it since we were basically trading back here somewhere. Just pointing out the fact that, hey, even if we do drop lower, we did break our downtrend here. And if we end up pulling back to that level, that's a good buy opportunity. So I currently have a long entry sitting at 90.75 cents, basically, is my average entry on a long. I was already in a long from down here. Basically, I just added to my position, right? I was taking profits along the way and I added back in when we got to my buy level. So this one was on my radar in several streams looking back. And so hopefully you guys ended up catching something there as well. So a nice, beautiful trade on that. Ethereum currently trading at resistance. Not looking so bad, much like Bitcoin, just, very similar to Bitcoin, actually, just the fact that we are trading at resistance again. One slight difference that I can point out is looking at the lower high on Ethereum. We technically we even wicked above it very slightly here. And then we wicked above that here. So technically we did set a new high and a higher high, confirming this as our higher low, which we ended up breaking. And then notice that we got our big down push from there. That being said, the fact that we had this little break, it's possible that we are going to get this type of a fib setup now. Let me just erase a couple things, just make this a little bit cleaner. But basically, this would be a typical STUBER fib setup that we are currently trading very close to the 4 hour 786 on this potential rejection setup, looking at a bearish setup. I'm personally not in an Ethereum trade. I kind of want to see what Bitcoin does first. Like I said, I'm already building what I'm considering a bit of a high risk short on Bitcoin. So I'm not really looking at catching this one on Ethereum at this point. However, I think it's still worth pointing out to you guys that, hey, Ethereum is trading at potential resistance right now. Solana, very much the same thing, right? Solana is very similar to Bitcoin, tested up to the lower high resistance absolutely perfectly. This one actually dumped more aggressively because we sent it past the 214 target, but we are once again testing that 786 resistance. So yeah, things aren't looking too bad. The fact that we got this bounce a little bit higher, right? We never set a lower low and then getting a bounce. So we don't have the structure favoring momentum of a new bearish fib pull at this point. But again, resistance is resistance until it's broken. But yeah, it's not looking too bad. It's just that at this point, it would be very risky to start longing and buying right into resistance after an aggressive pump right into that resistance, right? So seeing a lot of things in the market looking very similar to that, right? We have Bitcoin, we have Ethereum, we have Solana. They're all kind of doing that. Aster still looking fantastic to me, actually. This one, in my opinion, the trend has looked best on Aster compared to most of the altcoins I've been looking at recently. Just the fact that it had broke its downtrend already. So seeing this bounce is very nice there. Love to see that. The S&P 500, I had mentioned this yesterday, that although it has a beautiful trend on the Trendmaster indicator, let me just load that. It should be up in a second here. Yeah, so the fact that we reclaimed that pink purple support line, this buy trend basically, just a phenomenal run to the upside, just a beautiful trend there. So to see that we reclaimed it there, that looks fairly good. However, I also don't want to ignore the fact that this is a bit of a warning shot, right? Once again, we had our high, higher high, confirmed higher low. And here is where we broke that level. And right now, this is where we have that loss of a higher low, and we're retesting that resistance for the first time. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see it end up getting a bit of a correction here. Now, obviously, anything can happen. It could just carry on the trend to the upside and just end up breaking above all-time highs, in which case that bearish warning shot is invalidated. And you know what? Carry on to the upside. Right? At that point, the trend is your friend. We're just going to continue the trend to the upside. Fair enough. But as it stands right now, just a bit of a warning shot and technically at a little bit of resistance here. So let me know in the chat how you're all doing. Once again, my friends, if you guys appreciate the fact that I just try and look at the charts with a level head and trying to be the voice of reason in this market, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you are serious about trading and you want to look at charts and trade the charts for what they are rather than the hopium or the fear, right, on the other side, and, trying to overanalyze fundamentals and trying to look into every tweet that you read and that sort of thing, that's not the sort of stuff that interests me. I'd rather open up a chart and know within 10 or 15 seconds whether or not there's a potential trade setup looking me in the eyes, right? So I'd rather just look at the charts and trade them for what they are, because if those fundamentals, if those announcements are going to matter, the chart structure will reflect that, right? Yeah, just catching up on the chat a little bit. Love to see you guys here. Thank you so much for joining once again, my friends. Always appreciate having you guys here. The Bears, the Bulls, I love you all. Hey Stu, thanks for your precious teachings. It seems there was a small 4-hour structure break on Binance. BTC USD, can we count on this as a possible scenario? So I'm assuming you are not in my Telegram yet, which is fine. I saw your message, your question yesterday, right as I was wrapping up, and actually after I closed the stream. So I never answered that, but I did answer it in there. Basically, the way I see it, I don't have a confident answer with that. The way I see it is, if it's that close, it was very likely low liquidity, low volume, just some sort of a scam wick. I don't know. The fact that it's on Binance, there should be good volume and good liquidity there, whatever. Basically, I don't have an answer for you on that, because for me, myself, I trade whatever chart Well, I chart whatever exchange I'm actually trading on. That's why all my charts are on BloFin, because that's where I'm trading. So basically, that's the market structure that I want to use. But yeah, in a case like that, maybe there is an early warning sign on something like Binance. But yeah, that would be something that would be so rare. I mean, not so rare. It does happen, but it's just the kind of thing that it would be so hard to back test and go back and find all the scenarios where that happens and find out what your probabilities of that actually are. So yeah, sorry. Unfortunately, I can't really give you a confident answer on that. Yeah, what else? What else? I wanted to take a look at a couple indicators. The Trendmaster indicator, MDX Trendmaster here on the 4-hour. So notice we did set another lower sell signal here. The fact that it was very quickly, I mean, it technically hasn't been invalidated yet until we basically break our lower high at about 93.2 thousand. In that case, I would consider that signal invalidated. And much like the 5-minute chart, when we invalidated a lower sell signal, that can be an early warning sign that we are going to carry to the upside, right? So need to consider the possibilities that if we break that 93.2 thousand US dollars, it's very likely we do go for a climb because we're invalidating that. But that being said, it is still valid at this time. So we are just going to have to see what happens there. In fact, the way I typically like to pull fibs with the MDX Trendmaster like that, since I would be basically using this as my confirmed pivot point for our latest sell signal, pulling a fib something like this, much like what I had outlined earlier. Notice that either way, we are technically trading in resistance. Our resistance levels are very similar in that kind of a case. But yeah, I think basically if the bulls are able to push us past that 93.2 thousand US dollars, I think that's a great first sign that the bulls actually mean business here. And like I said, as long as retail keeps building these shorts, I think it's quite likely that we can push through it. But just remember, be cautious. We are, in fact, at resistance at this time. Looking at the daily as well with the long short, you can see it even more clearly here, how the shorts have been just aggressively climbing to the upside here. So again, that's actually a check for the bulls for me. If the majority of retail is shorting aggressively, then we are likely going to move bullish until that changes. Once they start FOMOing long into a resistance level again, that's where we'll see the downtrend continue, basically. But yeah, anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. Just a quick one going over some of the important structure levels and that sort of thing. So if you do appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor, guys, hit that like button. As I mentioned, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And just a reminder, for those of you interested in learning and seeing more examples of, some of my favorite trade strategies, some of my trade setup ideas, how I use Fibonacci's and market structure, just more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen. And here, just let me get back to BloFin, because as I mentioned, my partners at BloFin, if you sign up with them to gain access to my Telegram channel, you also get this promo that's currently running until December 7th. And yeah, with that, my friends, I'm out. Stay safe. Thank you so much for watching once again, my friends. Peace out.